Welcome to another OU Insider pregame podcast. I almost said Sooners pregame podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Travis Davidson, Parker Thune. It's the final Bedlam week, folks. Final Bedlam game I think it's going to get, they're going to reconnect down the road, but it's the final one for, I would assume, for about a decade. And it's a dandy. Both teams ranked in the top 25. Oklahoma at number 9. Oklahoma State, I think, 22, correct? Right above Kansas State. Or were they right below Kansas State? I can't remember off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. Right, they're both ranked. And it's going to be a 2:30 kickoff in Stillwater. It is going to be a fun atmosphere. The ticket prices are out of this world expensive. Out of this world. Has anybody looked at those?
I have not.
The club ones, I know a lot of them are high, but like the screenshot people keep sharing are like the club level tickets are like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a ticket. It's like, but I think one of those is like
price tickets, bro.
A couple. Well, that's what happens when you have a small stadium.
There it is. First shots fired. Travis Davidson.
The first shots fired were fired much earlier in the week.
Yeah, Cooper. By the way, let's get this out of the way. Let's get this out of the way. What in the hell are you doing, bro? Like,
that was arguably the weakest dunk I've ever seen. Weakest dunk attempt, I should say.
And then he got alley-ooped on by the whole OU fan base.
Yeah, here's the thing. You can't really say that stuff when you have a long and decorated history of OU fandom, at least on Twitter.
Go scrub your Twitter before you do something like that.
Trust me, if you got receipts, OU Twitter's going to find them. Yeah. And they found them.
The best part of all of it, honestly, happened yesterday around 4 o'clock. So obviously he has that video of, primetime Jet, Marquise Brown, is the fastest human I've ever laid eyes on. And it's him. And Hollywood quote tweeted it with 2 lightning bolts. So even former OU players, current NFL players are getting in on the fun from pulling tweets from 2018. I mean, it's funny stuff. But
Bedlam's supposed to be, guys. This is what Bedlam's supposed to be like. And OU fans act like they're above it because they've owned this rivalry in basketball and football for a long time. But you're lying if you say you're not going to miss it. Like, this stuff's fun. It's fun. Like, this in-state rivalry, even if it's lopsided, has been fun. And it's been more competitive over the last 20 years. And I think that's where you add that with the culmination of social media has really amplified what Bedlam has become. And it went from a laugher on a national stage from 1950 to 2000, right? From 2001 to 2023, it has been one of the most looked forward to games throughout the nation. Even if it's been Oklahoma winning the majority of them, they have been epic ball games.
I agree.
Epic games.
But also, I don't think I'll miss it very much. Being honest, because so if Bedlam was a $50 bill that I was finding outside of my front door every single day, I'm like, man, this is awesome, man. $50 bill outside the door every day. Well, I might miss it until I realize when I go outside next time it's a $100 bill. And that $100 bill is the SEC. And I'm not sure where would Oklahoma State rank next year on our schedule? Like the Oklahoma State game. Would it be top 5?
It would still be top 5.
I don't know if it would be top 5.
You don't think so?
I don't think it would be top 5.
Games you're looking forward to. And maybe it's just that.
Okay, games you're looking for. Okay, that's fair.
Not only that.
I still think Oklahoma State next year, with what they have returning and everything, they're probably going to be a top 15 team. So that's where I get with the if they were on the back end of the schedule like they always are, and you're having to play them as your non-con late in the year, yeah, it's going to be a game that's going to mean something because they could screw you over international title chances if it was to continue to be played on. But so I do get what y'all are saying as far as because there's so much newness on the schedule next year. That's where the looking forward to gets into. But I'm talking like just in terms of the ramifications of the game being a late game in the season, being the chance they're probably a top 15 team, top 20 team next year. They always are. But
man, I mean, here's the thing: top 15. You're gonna have to sell me on that because one thing OSU has to deal with every once in a while is NIL coming and poaching their players. So
we'll South Alabama, that too.
Yeah, worry about South Alabama too.
You guys are just taking shots. You're like walking out the door. If you're cool. If you.
hey, here's the thing. Here's what's wild to me is everybody's saying, look, this turnaround by Gundy. This is why he's a Hall of Famer. This is why he's a Hall of Famer. He's got the team ranked after that crappy start. Well, who was in charge of the start? It was Mike Gundy, wasn't it? Like, Mike Gundy is the guy that lights the house on fire and then puts out the fire and is the town hero. Like, no, he's the one that lit the house. The reason that everybody was doubting him is because they get their doors blown off by South Alabama 33-7, and they're running 3 quarterbacks. I think Ollie Gordon has 19 carries through the first 3 or 4 weeks. Like he was the one that
on all my points.
That they were no good.
Bastard.
It's just wild to me that everybody has this complete Men in Black, laser, memory eraser that we don't realize who got him in this mess is the same guy that's been in charge of the program for over a decade. Anything that happens during this season is all at Mike Gundy's feet, the good and the bad.
And here's my question. I know much has been made of the turnaround, and rightfully so. It has been impressive. I want to give props to Mike Gundy and to Oklahoma State. What's up?
Did Travis just pull out an lollipop?
No. Oh, no. That doesn't look like that's an lollipop. He covered up the label. He's off brand. But
okay, go ahead.
Look, I want to give props to Gundy and Oklahoma State for turning this thing around. But my question is this team as good as they have looked over the last 4 games? They're very obviously not as bad as they looked over the first 3 games. Are they as good as they've looked over the last 4 games? Because as I see it, fellas, this team has one path to victory on Saturday, and that is feed the rock to Ollie Gordon. If Oklahoma can minimize Ollie Gordon's impact on the football game, and he's going to get his, you're not going to completely power him down. But if they can keep Ollie Gordon from beating them, does Oklahoma State have another way to win this football game?
Yes, Brennan Presley and Jaden Bray, but that would require, outside of Brennan Presley getting a jet sweep or 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, they're successful on their jet sweep, Sooners fans. I'm just going to let y'all know, I've watched them a few times this year, and if the OU offensive staff wants to see a clinic on how to run a jet sweep, Oklahoma State does it right. But those two, they're ball players. They're good players. You have to tackle. I think ultimately what this comes down to, 100% without question, comes down to how detailed, how focused is Oklahoma, because I think you can point to the intensity, and I don't know that Oklahoma wasn't intense the last 2 weeks. I think they played with intensity, but they played without control. And when I say that, I mean, you're not focusing the details. You're coming downhill trying to make a big hit, and you whiff, and the dude goes 30 for a touchdown instead of being tackled in the backfield. You had him tackled for a loss. I can count on 2 hands last week versus Kansas how many TFLs Oklahoma gave up by just not wrapping up and playing fundamental football.
Yeah, there's a
And
difference between hitting and tackling.
Correct. You can be intense. You can play with intensity. You can do all those different things. But if you're not focused and you're not detailed with that intensity, it doesn't matter. And that's the difference between winning and losing, or at least keeping Oklahoma State in the ball game and or getting run out of the stadium. Because I think with that crowd on Saturday, if they allow them to get going, it's going to be a long, long game for Oklahoma. And it starts up front. It starts up front on both sides of the ball. It starts with the defensive line. They've got to start making plays on first and second down. They were first in the nation in tackle for loss up until this past week. And like I said, they gave up double-digit tackles for loss last week where they just didn't wrap up. A prime example, and this is not to pick on Ethan Downs because Ethan Downs he didn't play great, but he made the biggest play of the game for Oklahoma when they needed it. So he came up big. But on Kansas's last drive, the very first play of Kansas's last drive, Ethan Downs has a chance to tackle Jason Bean for like a 9-yard loss. And he's running. He grabs a hold of him and just slides down his jersey. And Jason Bean takes off for a first down. And it's plays like that that change the fabric of any ball game. Because they're plays that they're huge. They're huge. There's a difference. You're 2nd and 19 on your final drive trying to go down to win, and now you've got a 1st and 10 on the minus side of the 40 instead of, minus 10, whatever it was, minus 14. I mean, that's such a start. That's 36 yards, fellas. 36 yards difference in the play. Such a big play. And it's, again, you've got to make plays. You've got to make tackles. You've got to play sound football. And it starts up front. That defensive line needs to start being aggressive. The offensive line has to be aggressive. And Jeff Levy has to be aggressive, because the one thing you have to say about Oklahoma State is, as good as they are in their 3-3-5, the 3-2-6, all the different matchups that they throw out there defensively, Kendall Daniels is a good center fielder, but he gets beat deep because he plays so aggressive sometimes. You have to use that against them. They have been beaten deep, I want to say 20 times this year, on just bombs from opponents. If you're going to beat Oklahoma State, you've got to get back. You got to find a way to get Nick Anderson down the field, Jalil Farouk down the field.
Brennan Thompson,
Gavin Freeman.
Wait. Is Gavin Freeman allowed to run routes past the 5 yards?
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a good question. But
I mean, last year, his 2 biggest plays of the season were obviously the touchdown run where Brandon Willis was blocking his butt off, but then also the big long catch that everybody thought it was Drake Stoops down there. That's why everybody chanted Stoops, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like he had the one drop, the middle of the season, going across the middle on 3rd down, I believe. And then other than that, I don't think I recall Gavin Freeman just getting to run down the field. People want to talk about, well, he ran the jet sweep once and scored a touchdown, so that's all Jeff Levy wants to do with him. Well, he also had a deep ball where he laid out and made a beautiful catch. So it's like, you can't just be selective if you're Jeff Levy and be like, hey, we're going to go with what works. That worked too. If you want to send him deep, send him deep. But I think the answer is Brennan Thompson, man. He runs a 10-2. He's fast guy on the field. Use him in jet sweeps if you want, but mainly let that guy run straight down the field and let those safeties get a little bit scared. Let those safeties, just those corners, get ran by and just absolutely panic and be worried about that the rest of the game.
So Oklahoma State's going to play man. They're going to play man. They're going to play aggressive. They're going to do a lot of different things defensively that put their secondary on an island, and that's just how they play.
The Sooners, and I will say this, Brandon, the Sooners got a lot of receivers that can beat man.
Yeah.
They got a lot of receivers that can beat man.
But
you look at the separation that some of those guys have created at times this season when they've been faced with man coverage. If I'm Jeff Lebby, if I'm scheming this game with the knowledge that Oklahoma State is going to play a ton of man and in many cases won't have safety help over the top to one particular side of the field, then I'm attacking that, man, because I know I got dudes that can beat man coverage with speed down the field, i.e. Brendan Thompson. I know I got guys that can beat it with precise route running, and I also know I got guys that can win one-on-one matchups because they're just bigger and stronger than whoever they're lined up against.
that's very true. But now it gets down to Jeff Lebby and Dylan Gabriel trusting them. And to me, and I asked this question in the post game. I asked this question last night on the live. And Travis, I want your answer on this. Are we underplaying the loss of Andrew Anthony? Because it seems like the second he went out, and it didn't affect Oklahoma because they were in the throes of the game versus Texas. But as they had a week to prepare, it almost felt like DG and Levy were lost. They're like, well, number 5's not out there. I don't know what to do now. Can we go deep? Can we run a hitch? Can we run some digs? Number 5's not out there. It's our go-to.
So,
and it seems like they're just a bit lost right now in trust. Like, I got news for DG, and I said this on the live last night. Nick Anderson's your best wide receiver. Give him the ball.
My thing,
throw it out there.
but that's my thing is, I don't buy for a second that, the Andrew Anthony type, oh, does this team not have this? Like the game after he went out, Nick Anderson went off for 5 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
And then they threw him at Kansas. They threw him 2 balls at Kansas. One was a flag, 3rd down, moves the sticks, and the other one was a catch, 1st down. So it's like, every time you've thrown the ball in Ford's direction, good things happen. So I don't think it's a personnel thing. I think it's just, the only game that we've seen really reason to say, oh, do we miss Andrew Anthony? Because you can't really say that with UCF because of Nick Anderson's performance, was Kansas. And that didn't come down to, I think that just came down to Levy saying, I'm not going to throw it in this weather. Because every time he did throw it to Nick Anderson, good things happened. So I don't know.
The way I see it is, does the loss of Andrew Anthony hurt? Has it hurt the Sooners? Absolutely. That's a guy that if you have the option between having him on the field and not having him on the field, you would rather have him on the field, right?
You don't say.
By the same token, I don't feel like we can really make a judgment on how tangibly Andrew Anthony's absence has affected Oklahoma because you haven't seen them attack down the field these last couple of games, except in the couple instances when Nick Anderson just toasted his man and was wide open. Mm-hmm. We have not seen the Sooners be proactive in pushing the ball down the field. We haven't seen somebody fail to make the same plays downfield that Andrew Anthony would make. We have not really seen the Sooners target a wide receiver in the passing game the way that Andrew Anthony was targeted. And so to me, I think you have got, and we talked about it in the post game after the Kansas game on Saturday, you've got to get back to what works. And to me, what works right now for this Oklahoma offense is 2 things. One, Tawi Walker in the run game. He is your most consistent, most reliable option in the backfield. You stick with what works in that capacity. And then I think what has worked in the passing game for Oklahoma, what their personnel groupings are conducive to in the passing game, is pushing the ball downfield, not necessarily taking deep shots every other play, but being willing to throw the ball beyond 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. We've just seen way too much attacking the perimeter. And to me, the personnel that Oklahoma has in the pass catching core, that's not going to be as successful of a strategy and an approach, attacking the perimeter, that is, as just letting those guys route up the opposition and create separation down the field. Because you got a guy in Dillon Gabriel that is more than capable of hitting open receivers, and we've seen that. You let him get open, he'll find them.
Yeah, so I guess my biggest question here is I guess you know that you got a couple guys that can go down the field. It's a matter of, like you said, trust. Does Levy trust those guys? I guess is the biggest question. Because and also, what happens if Tawi Walker gets injured or is injured and can't play? What running back do you rely on? Because you got a banged up Marcus Major with his shoulder, and I don't know if he's effective. He did not travel, so we know that. Is he going to be able to play this week? And if not, do you lean on Barnes? Do you lean on Salchuk? I prefer 27, and I've made that very clear to everybody. But, I mean, what does DeMarco and Jeff Lebby think? There's so many questions going into this game of what ifs, if how comes, if what happens type deal, because they're so banged up on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, when it comes to trust, like you said, trust, with the wide receivers initially was the question, right? It's like,
yeah,
if Nick Anderson, like not trusting Nick Anderson by now would be like doing a trust fall with a group of your buddies 100 times they catch you, and then on the 101st time still being a little bit wary. Like he's giving you every reason to trust him. If you don't trust him by now, like Drake, you've got trust issues. But with the running backs, it's Marcus Major was banged up against UCF. They ran him anyways. He was in pain. They ran him anyways. Gavin's in there. Javonte did nice things. Even Brent Venables said Javonte did nice things against Kansas. I thought he did too. I think a couple times he could have maybe picked a different path, but that's nitpicking at its best. That's revisionist history, or that's not revisionist history. That's hindsight being 2020. But Tawi's your best back. But if you have a 80% Tawi Walker, do you favor him over a 95% Javonte Barnes? Like at some point, you're not going to know until they get out there. And that's just as simple as that. But it's going to come down to whether the offensive line can block it up anyways.
Yeah.
And I also want to ask, you brought up that they play a lot of man. And I bring this up every week. And I was proven right. I think every week I've brought it up by now. But Dillon Gabriel's legs, when they're playing man, if you've got guys going deep and they've got their heads turned and all your defenders have your backs to the quarterback, Dillon has to take chances and run the ball. Like he just has to. He's going to get hit. It is what it is. But, I mean, he ran for, 14 carries for 64 yards, I think, 3 touchdowns, obviously, against Kansas, long of 12. So, like, it wasn't a situation where he broke off like a 60-yarder, which skewed his numbers. Like, he was an effective runner against Kansas. He was an effective runner against Texas. Like, he was really an effective runner against UCF. He's been an effective runner down the stretch. And this game, it's the biggest game of the season, right? You win this game, your odds of at least appearing in the Big 12 championship absolutely skyrocket. So with that, Dillon's got to take some chances and run. Like let those wide receivers go deep. And whether it's by design, whether it's something that, instead of throwing it away and setting it off, you just take off. Like I think Dillon's got to have over 10 rushing attempts in this game.
I don't know about over 10, but I think between 8 and 10, I think would be a good number for him. I honestly think, and I've said this, the trust that needs to be more is probably with Salchuk, because you go back to the game last week, you run him, he goes for 2, he goes for 3. You get you throw a pass, you get a first down. Then all of a sudden, you don't run him. Then on second down, he goes for 8. So it's 3rd and 2, and you never see Gavin Sawchuk again until middle of the 3rd quarter as far as running the ball. What in the hell? I mean, the dude was averaging at that point 4 yards a carry. He had 16 yards in like the first 2 drives, right? 4 yards a carry on 4 attempts. He had 16 yards, 4 attempts. And then they go back to him the rest of the game. I think he ended up averaging like 3.7 or something to that extent. But again, 3.7 yards. You give that dude the ball 4 times. That's over 13 yards. You're getting a first down every time, every 4 carries. Why in the hell did you go
3.7 yards
drive?
Is not good, Brandon.
I understand it.
But also, Tawi caught fire.
Tawi caught fire.
Tawi caught fire.
When he got injured, my question is, you don't not give the ball to Tawi Walker all game. You give that dude the ball and let him rock. I get that. I'm talking about when he got injured, you went to a dude that you didn't trust all season in the throes of the game when the week before you gave the ball to 27 and he got 60 yards in the 4th quarter and solidified the game for you. So what changed? What changed?
They were resting him up for Bedlam. Clearly.
So nobody has an answer for that. Like, nobody has an answer for that. I mean, were you not questioning that too? Like,
so DeMarco explained it in Coach's Corner earlier this week, and basically said that because of the way that Tawi had been gashing the Kansas defense and the situation that they were in, he felt having a back with more power, i.e. Barnes over Sawchuk, in that circumstance made sense. And obviously it didn't pan out, but again, many have noted that on that 3rd and 12 play, Javonte Barnes had a lot of green space in front of him if he'd just been able to find it.
Yeah, he just didn't have the vision to find it. And you want to know the one back that's shown vision outside of Tawi Walker this year has been 27.
At times.
Well, at times.
We can't get on here and say that Gavin Sawchuk.
No, he's had his struggles, but he's had less than 24 and 2 as far as finding space.
Okay.
Am I wrong? In the limited amount of play that he's had. So
I think that's the thing too, is the limited amount of play. The running back room is crazy. I don't remember the last time. I mean, obviously when Dimitri Flowers had to start at running back that one game, I think against Tech, it's like the running back room has been so weird because have all 4 started a game? I know all 4, I think, have led the team in carries at least once, but Marcus has missed a game with injury. Tawi came out of a game with injury, missed another game for an in-house suspension. Javonte Barnes obviously missed time. Gavin Sawchuk missed time. That's what's so weird is just a little bit of consistency on the health side would answer a lot of questions that remain in the backfield through 9 weeks. And I think that's the problem is through the KU game, we're like, boom, finally, everybody shut up about who RB1 is. Tawi Walker is going to get all the carries, and we're going to be fine with that. And then, his ankle screwed up. So then this week, we're like, well, how good's his ankle? Marcus Major, how good's his shoulder? Javonte Barnes, why do they trust him over Gavin Sawchuk? I don't know. Who knows? Like, it's just weird because it hasn't been your typical, like, hey, we've got 2 or 3 healthy backs the entire season. Now let's let the pecking order work out. All 4 backs have missed a game and have led the team in carries for a game. That's insane. Yeah.
Okay. Keys to the game, and then we're going to do predictions real quick. And then Travis, you and I, after Parker leaves, because he's got to go do a radio spot real quick, you and I are going to break down this week in the Big 12 because it's such a huge, huge week for the Big 12 across the board. And then college football in general, with the college football playoff rankings out, there's a lot of games out there that are very, very critical to the college football playoffs moving forward this week. So we'll talk about those, break those down, give our predictions, and then we'll head out. All right, first, 2 players, one on offense, one on defense, that has to show out for Oklahoma to win this weekend. Anybody want to go first?
I'll start.
I'll go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
My offensively, I would say for me, and it's an obvious answer, but you got to get Nick Anderson more involved. And it was interesting. We talked to Dylan Gabriel about that on Tuesday night. I asked him straight up, "Hey, how do you get Nick Anderson more involved?" And it was his response was very intriguing. He just said, "We just gotta trust the coaches," almost kind of insinuating that Nick Anderson being nothing more than a background character in the game plan this past Saturday, and Lawrence wasn't really in Dylan's control as much so as it was in the staff's control. But look, it's the best wide receiver on your roster, no question about it. Maybe the best wide receiver in the Big 12, all things considered. And so you feed that dude. You feed that dude, especially in a game where, and I'll circle back around to this in my prediction, Oklahoma State is not a team that is engineered to play from behind. So you get them on their heels early, you force the issue, you set the tempo, you attack them downfield, you put a couple scoring drives together, they run the risk of folding very quickly. So Nick Anderson is the answer offensively for me. And then defensively, I think it's a guy that has really progressively emerged to the point where some people are ready to see him break into the starting lineup, and that is Kip Lewis. I just think going up against Ollie Gordon, you got to have your linebackers play their best ball. We don't know Danny Stutzman's status. Jaron Kanik was very hit or miss last week in Lawrence. So Kip Lewis is one guy that it seems like every time he's been on the field, he's made plays. And it's been his usage has been sporadic, but when he has been on the field, he, in large part, has been excellent. So I'd like to see him get more run in Stillwater this weekend, and I'd like to see him be part of the effort to slow Ollie Gordon down.
Go ahead, Travis.
Okay, so offensively, I'm going to kind of cheat, and I'm going to say the guard position, because all year we've seen a merry-go-round in both sides, right? With McCabe Matar, and then he went down with an injury at Texas, and then he's got to come back on and play on one leg, and then you've got, okay, we moved Savion Byrd. Savion Byrd gets concussed. Now he's coming back in. Okay, we'll move him out to the right, and then Troy Everett, he can go left or right. And then Caden Green looks like a monster against Texas, but he shows a little bit of freshman mistake here and there in big moments. Like, it's just, we're so deep into the season, and a lot like the running back room, it's like, if the guys just remained healthy all year, and I know that's a lot to ask, I get it, it's football. If the guys remain healthy all year, I think the guard position would be nice and solidified. It's all about communication along that front. I think we'd be in really good shape. But it's who's healthy. Okay, here are your players that are healthy this week, Bill. Make it work. Okay, well, I got to plug this one in here, plug this one in here. And the strength of Oklahoma State's defense is basically you take the point of those guards and you draw it straight back through the middle of Oklahoma State's defense and those inside backers. And then you've got Kendall Daniels, obviously, that comes down. You touched on how aggressive he is in the run. He'll be coming right down the middle. Like, a lot of their strengths are right there on the inside when you draw from the guards. So that guard position has to be good if we want to get aggressive in the pass game, if we want to open up anything up the middle, or even if they want to pull and get around to the edges. Like, the guards just have to play solid, whoever that may be this week. And then defensively, I'm going to go Key Lawrence. When Danny Stutzman isn't on the field, Key Lawrence is the vocal leader, essentially, of the defense, or at least he portrays himself as that, and that's what you notice on the field. The problem with Danny, obviously, his physical tools, his physical play, huge. But we saw it late in the game. The defense was discombobulated. They didn't know where to line up. And Danny does so much of that mentally. I mean, we saw it, that second play against Texas where he's saying, hey, you go here, you go here. This is the play that's coming. Boom, boom, boom. And they were relaxed. They were ready. Ball snapped. Boom, interception. Well, against Kansas, once Danny went out, you stopped to see that type of alignment, just confidence, that type of relaxed, hey, we know exactly where we're going. We know we're doing this. And I know that Kansas does a lot of, pre-motion window dressing and different formations. So I understand that's hard. But I feel like Key Lawrence needs to have a good game. I think Brennan Presley, you said, when he takes those deep crosses and things like that, Key Lawrence is going to have to pick him up at times. So the vocal side of Key Lawrence, getting the defense lined up a lot with him and with Kip and everything. And then making sure that nobody gets loose on him on the back end. So Key Lawrence is my defensive player.
All right. I will go with the two obvious ones here. I think. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm going to start defense, and I'm going to just say, going to cheat like Travis. I'm going to say the defensive front as a whole. And yeah, I know Danny Stutzman.
I picked 2. You picked 7.
It is what it is, bro. I don't make the rules. I just change them. So here's the thing: is you look at what happened last week with Kansas. You look at what happened last week with Kansas. You look at what just the situation that went down with the defensive line, right? Not aggressive. They were too worried about gap integrity, all that type of stuff. Instead of just playing ball, getting their tackles for losses, they were worried about the run game. They were worried about Jason Bean getting out and running, and rightfully so. We saw what happened when that was allowed. That said, this week, you got to say, screw all that. You got to get back to who you are as a defensive front, and you got to start pinning your ears back and just playing ball and letting your game beat their game. You got to trust the scheme. You got to trust your knowledge of the scheme. You got to trust your abilities. If Oklahoma does not do that, and they are not getting out front on first and second down like they have all season, and putting offenses in precarious situations on third down. And again, third down wasn't the issue last week. I think they were like 4 for 20 or something like that, something stupid. Kansas was not good on third down. But they didn't have to get to third down a lot of times. They were first, second down, getting chunk plays. That's got to stop. You got to make your tackles in the backfield. That has to happen. You've got to get Alan Bowman out of the pocket. You've got to make him make a lot of off-platform throws because he's not as successful when he does that. He's good. If you go watch him play, he's good sliding around, moving his feet in the pocket. The second you make him get outside the guard, he has problems. Not outside the tackle, outside the guard. He has problems. So the defensive line has to start taking care of business. And the obvious thing is Danny Stutzman has to be available as well, but that's another thing we chew on later on. Offensively, I'm going with the obvious. Dylan Gabriel has to make big plays. He's got to get back to big play DG. He's got to stretch the field. He's got to trust in I hate the RPO game more than the next, right? I think it ruins a lot of the tight end issues. It's caused a lot of the tight end issues, as far as being able to use the tight end and Stogner over the middle. When they don't do RPOs and they use him on fourth down, third down, he's been successful and made big plays for him. When they try to go to the RPO game, you kind of take the tight end out. I hate it. It just takes so much time and allows the defense to pick up. There's a whole schematic issue there. That said, DG's got to stretch the field. He's got to stretch the field with his legs. He's got to stretch the field with his arms. If those two things take place, Oklahoma will win the ballgame. They will win the ballgame. The defensive line has to get back to being who they are. They've been one of the best defensive fronts in college football this year. They got to get back. Number 2, DG's got to get back to playing like a Heisman candidate. He's got to stretch the field. He's got to use his legs. You do those two things, you win the ballgame. That's my keys. Parker, before you go real quick, I know you got to get out of here. Give us your prediction on the game.
My prediction. I guess I said it last night on the live, so I don't want to change it up. I got Oklahoma 38-24. And I just think I think the matchup here favors Oklahoma. UCF and Kansas, in particular, I don't mean to excuse the way that Oklahoma played in those games, but it has been noted by many, including my radio colleague Teddy Lehman, that UCF and Kansas had some of the things that have been Achilles' heels for Brent Venables' defenses in the past, most notably a mobile quarterback, right? And so Oklahoma State's game plan is very straightforward. We talked about it from the top. It is, I wouldn't say an antiquated, not necessarily anachronistic style of offense, because they do some innovative stuff, right? The jet sweep is something that has only really come into existence in the last 20 years. So it's not as if Oklahoma State is decades behind the times offensively, but they're going to keep it pretty straightforward. Traditional rushing attack, traditional passing attack for the most part. Ollie Gordon is their bread and butter. And because Ollie Gordon is their bread and butter, I said it earlier, I will say it again, this is not a team that is engineered to play from behind. You want to know the largest deficit Oklahoma State has overcome in a victory this year, guys? 8 points. 8 points. They have not overcome a deficit of more than one possession all year. So I got the Sooners 38-24.
Okay.
All right.
There it is. What do you got, Travis?
Okay, so first and foremost, I think Ollie Gordon's going to get his because he's a very talented back. That's going to be the focus of their offense. He's on a heater. These last 4 games, he's been tremendous. I don't think he's going to go for like 200 plus, but I think he's going to get his. I don't think it's a situation where we hold this guy to like 60 rushing yards. I have it at 24 Oklahoma State, 31 Oklahoma. I think, Parker brought up the jet sweep stuff. Our corners have been good at defending that. Obviously, the linebackers have to get up and kind of get that early penetration to try and continue to try and push him to the outside. And then, like, if Gentry Williams is healthy, like he's been incredible at getting off blocks and kind of blowing up that lateral stuff. I think Oklahoma scores a decent amount because the last time that Jeff Lebby, and I get the opponents are different, but the last time that Jeff Lebby was this criticized about his play calling was in the SMU game. The next week, I feel like Dylan Gabriel threw about 40 deep balls. So I feel like being back at home, or not being back at home, but the weather being back to where it's manageable. It's not going to be Kansas weather. And so I know Jeff Lebby said, despite, Jason Bean being able to throw the ball, I know Jeff said, hey, with the weather like it was, we wanted to keep it on the ground, whatever. But I think this week it's, hey, look, this OSU secondary can get got. They've been got like all season for the most part. Not one of the better pass defenses you're going to see. Mm-hmm. So I think they let it rip a little bit. Dylan uses his legs. He probably scores another one on the ground. I think Nick Anderson gets back on the touchdown train, and I think 31-24 Sooners.
So I picked 34-24 Oklahoma. I think it's going to be a close ball game up until I think Oklahoma pulls away in the fourth quarter. Probably about between 10 and 7-10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma starts to separate itself and really, puts their foot on Oklahoma State's throat. That said, I feel like this game is going to be a typical Bedlam game. It's going to be a lot of back and forth a little bit. It's going to be a roller coaster. You're going to get frustrated as a fan if you're an Oklahoma fan. You're going to get frustrated as an Oklahoma State fan. It's Bedlam. Like, you never really know, and I feel like something poignant's going to happen. Like, it's the last Bedlam game. I just feel it. I feel it. A play that we're going to remember for generations is going to take place. And I don't know why I feel that way, but I think it's because it's the last Bedlam game, and it would be only right after the last 20 plus years of how this thing's gone, probably even dating back to from 95 on, that there's been so many plays that you look back and be like, yeah, I remember that. Yep, I remember that. Oh, you remember this play? You remember that play? I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. Kind of like the Hollywood Brown, who is this guy type deal. I think you're going to have Nick Anderson, who is this guy. It's obviously not Fox, it's ABC this time, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like Nick Anderson's going to just have one of those games. He's going to be the game changer for Oklahoma. He's going to get behind the defense. He's going to make plays. He's going to have 2 touchdowns. I feel like they're going to stop. They're not going to stop Ollie Gordon, but I think if you can hold him 150 or less, I think you're doing a good job because he's going to get his. They run a lot of max protect. They run a lot of, a lot of people in the box as far as on the line, as far as like blocking for the run game, all that type of stuff. It's what makes it hard to get to Alan Bowman. So I feel like he's going to get his at times, but at the same time, I think eventually Oklahoma is going to overpower Oklahoma State. They have too many horses. This game is going to have a lot more juice to it, which I think is going to bring a lot more focus back to this Oklahoma team because it's Bedlam, because it's a rivalry. There's a lot of buildup into this. And if Danny Stutzman can go, I would not be shocked if you see Danny Stutzman at the mic and you see Kip Lewis at the wheel to start the game. Don't be shocked. Not a knock on Jaron Kanik. I think Jaron Kanik is on the road of Danny Stutzman, as you said the other day. He's on that trajectory. But that trajectory isn't good enough for this squad. It's way different. It's way different. There's too much depth at the linebacker position now with Kobe McKenzie, with Kip Lewis, with Lewis Carter, Sammy Omasigo, all those guys. Like, there's too much depth. So you've got to get your best 2 guys out there majority of the time. And I think Kanik wakes up a little bit. When he comes in, I think he makes a play or 2 where people are like, okay, no. Because you always see, there's always a player or 2 where you're like, dude, that guy's going to be a beast.
Yeah, there's always flash.
But it's when he's got to figure it out mentally first. And I think it's happening. It's just not at the pace that Oklahoma fans would like. And then on the back end, you're going to have Peyton Bowen back a lot more healthy. At least that's what we're hearing. Sounds like Gentry Williams is practicing. At least that's what we're hearing. So if you can get those 2 guys back, I think the secondary changes quite a bit. I think your ability to do things changes quite a bit defensively. And it's going to help OU, not only the passing game, but the run game, because they're 2 physical guys that come downhill. The run fits. They like to hit. I just think as Oklahoma gets healthy, things are going to change. And then back on the offensive side, Travis, it's Tawi Walker. Is he going to be available to go 100%? And if not, what do they do at running back? All those questions without answers right now because the game hasn't played. But even so, I still like Oklahoma. You got to end Bedlam the way you've started it, and that's by beating Oklahoma State. And if you're going to end this conference and you're not going to be in the Big 12 anymore, you need to go out with a bang, and that means you need to go out as a winner. You need to win the conference, and to do that, you've got to beat Oklahoma State. This game is very, very important. This game means so much to the Big 12 rankings moving forward, and I think Oklahoma knows it, and I think their focus is returned this week. So, anyways, but on the flip side, you've got Kansas State, Texas, and you got Iowa State, Kansas. You got some really, really good games going on this week. Let's talk about Kansas State, Texas real quick. Who do you have and why?
Man, I think Kansas State gets them. Like I think Kansas State is the hottest team in the Big 12 right now. I know some people would probably give that to Oklahoma State with the way Ollie Gordon's playing, but man, Kansas State has been on a roll. I know a lot of people kind of wrote them off early in the season because of that loss, but it's Preseason, I said that we would meet Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. I still think that happens. I think they beat Texas. I think Texas without Quinn, I think Malik is prone to some mistakes. And I don't know how Malik is going to respond. Maybe they're playing from behind. Maybe they're, I don't know, like maybe you start to feel a little bit of that arch pressure if you're Malik. Who knows? Like, I think Kansas State, there's a reason they won the Big 12 last year. There's a reason they're on a roll right now. They're well coached. I think they're playing with a ton of confidence. I think Kansas State gets them in like a classic, in like a field goal, maybe a last minute, like 2-point conversion, something like that. I think it's close, but I think Kansas State gets it done.
Yeah, I'm going to take K-State. I'm probably wrong. But I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to be back this week, from my understanding. That's a problem. We saw the struggles offensively last week with Texas a little bit. They're pretty one-dimensional, not really as balanced as they normally are. And because of that, it feels like this thing has a chance to teeter in K-State's direction. And if that happens, I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, now you look to K-State to win out. And it might be the best scenario for Oklahoma to have a top 10 win versus Texas if they somehow end up 10-2, and then a top 10 win versus K-State if they win out and they're 10-2 going into the Big 12 title game as far as playoff seedings go, because I think Kansas ends up 9-3 because I think they beat Iowa State this week. I know Iowa State's better. They've looked better. I just think Kansas is the better team. I'm not going to say the better coach team. They're just more talented than Iowa State right now. And I just trust Kansas a little bit more. And it's probably just because I watched Oklahoma just shellac the crap out of Iowa State this year. So I'm going to
My thing with
go ahead.
that is, I think Kansas is better coached. First of all, I'm not that big of a Matt Campbell guy, and I am a Leipold guy. So
yeah,
I think Kansas is better coached. I think Kansas kept playing with a ton of confidence after just beating Oklahoma for the first time since 1997. Hopefully they don't have a hangover from that. But yeah. I think the initial college football playoff rankings were beautiful for Oklahoma. Beautiful. Kansas, there were 4 teams that I really wanted to pay attention to, right? Oklahoma ranked number 9th. That's good. Inside the top 10. That we're above where we were years in the past where we made it. And there are 6 teams ahead of us that play each other. So with that, you've got Oklahoma at 9. Kansas is ranked. So all of a sudden your loss is now ranked.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma State is ranked. So you get another ranked team on your schedule. And Kansas State is ranked. So if they go ahead and keep winning, then they'll be back on the by the Big 12 championship game. I think that at minimum they'd be like top 12, depending on how that shakes out. So you have an opportunity now to have, your loss would be to a ranked team, and then you would have 3 ranked wins, including potentially 2 top 10 wins, and be a conference champion. And your ranked loss was on the road in conference in crappy weather. So, I mean, I think the college football playoff rankings came up roses for Oklahoma.
I agree. And it almost felt like it was purposeful because they wanted to make sure they gave credit where credit's due, because I don't think you could pump Texas up without pumping Oklahoma up because they beat them. And I think they knew that because of where they put Alabama. If they're going to put Alabama where they put Alabama, you had to put Texas and Oklahoma somewhere in that realm, because if you didn't, it just looked like a jumble of like, oh, you think they're that good? Well, they lost to that team and that team lost to that team. So how is that possible? So it's one of those deals, man, where it couldn't work out perfectly because you look at Oklahoma State's schedule remaining. Let's say OU wins Bedlam, like we've all predicted. They go to UCF, to Houston, and get BYU at home. They should be 9-3 by the end of the year. So you have a 9-3. You win against 9-3, which probably puts Oklahoma State between 15 and 20, if not maybe around 15, 16, right in the rankings. You've got a win over Texas. If they're 10-2, if they lose to K-State this, or even if they win, you've got a top 10 win over Texas. At that point, you have a chance to have 2 top 10 wins regardless of the fact, because you would have to beat Texas again, would be a top 10, top 5 team, and or Kansas State, who, if they go 10-2, are a top 10 team. So you look at that, you got, like you said, the 9-3 lost Kansas, 8-4, doesn't matter, top 25 team, Kansas.
The best thing to happen, though, was because on OU Twitter and Texas Twitter and all over, people are saying, "Oh, you lost to Kansas. Kansas? What are we talking about? Kansas?" Well, luckily, the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't hear the word Kansas and start laughing. That's a ranked team in their eyes. Like, what was great was winning at Tuscaloosa is like a fast pass in the rankings typically. And they gave Texas a lot of credit for that. But they didn't let the reputation of the last 20 years, well, of the last 15 years, 14 years of Kansas football drag Oklahoma down. They were willing to admit this isn't your normal Kansas team.
Yeah.
So that was really what I was looking for the rankings is, do they take the narrative of what Kansas football is, or do they take the actual reality of what current Kansas football is? So no, it's set up beautifully, but Oklahoma's got to go win football games. Simple as that.
Yep. I totally agree. This week, I think Missouri, Georgia's this week. Am I mistaken on that? I feel
you're correct.
Yeah, there's the college football schedule is one that is awesome this week a little bit. You got Notre Dame going to Clemson. You have Kansas State at Texas. We just talked about Texas A&M at Mississippi. You've got, let's see here. What's the other good one? Florida State going to Pitt. Pitt's always, I said this, and they won a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, well, you don't want to throw Pitt out. I think they shocked North Carolina, correct? Am I correct on that? Is that who North Carolina lost to originally?
No, Pitt beat Louisville.
Louisville, that's who it was. That's who it was. I was like, oh, Louisville's got Pitt. That's a struggle. That's who it was. And then obviously, like we said, we got Missouri, Georgia, Kansas at Iowa State, Washington at USC, LSU at Alabama. LSU at Alabama, and then that kind of solidifies it. But there's a lot of good games. Let's go. Who do you have, LSU or Alabama? Can LSU's defense stop Alabama's
anything?
Yeah, can they stop anything? It's a good question. And can LSU and Jaden Daniels be stopped by Alabama? I think is probably the better question. Like, who's going to score more?
I like Alabama.
I do too.
I like Alabama here by 10. I think Alabama's playing really good football right now. I think Alabama has as good a chance as anybody to run the table, beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and get into the playoff. Now, that obviously raises the question, does Alabama and Georgia, do they both make the playoff at that point? Because Georgia would only be a one-loss non-conference champion, and the only loss they would have is to the SEC champion. We've seen it before. But I think Alabama's playing really, really good football right now in Tuscaloosa. I like Bama in that game.
Parker?
LSU just has so many defensive deficiencies, man. And I've had to learn my lesson 10 times over now with Alabama. They're not falling off until Nick Saban retires. It's just not happening.
Nope.
They're going to be in the thick of the playoff conversation until at least the final couple weeks of the regular season. And that's just how it is. That's how it always will be under the iron-fisted rule of Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, give me the Tide in this one.
Washington, USC. I'm actually going to take USC here. I think this is where Washington slips up.
Wow.
I do. I'm doing it.
No, I mean,
Night game, Coliseum.
Brandon,
Caleb Williams on the big stage.
You do realize USC.
I do realize Alex Grinch is still their defensive coordinator.
Yes, and you do realize USC hasn't covered the spread all season against an FBS opponent.
Totally agree. Totally understand. They had the best player in college football still.
And the worst defensive coordinator.
They have the worst defensive coordinator, but they have the best player in college football that doesn't have a lot of help, but I'm going to still pick USC. I feel like I'm crazy. Travis, help me.
I think you're wish casting a little bit, hoping that Washington goes down. I think you're wish casting just a little bit.
Now, I will say this. Washington losing helps OU. So,
yeah, significantly.
I'm a businessman, and I want that to happen so badly.
Washington losing objectively helps OU because a prerequisite right now for Oklahoma to legitimately control their own destiny in the playoff race is either Washington State loses or Florida State loses. I'm sorry, Washington, not Washington State. But Washington loses or Florida State loses. That's a prereq right now to make sure that Oklahoma controls their own destiny. And you feel like they do right now, but when you look at the upper echelon of college football, you look at the top 5 teams in the nation that are still unbeaten, you're going to need one of them to lose.
Muleshoe is helping out Oklahoma this weekend.
Wow.
Right. Well,
calling it.
What's funny is you said, I'm a businessman. I think that was Caleb's bio, right? I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. The old JC.
I'm just a businessman. I'm not a businessman.
So, no, I think it's obviously wish casting, but I do think Washington has looked a bit shaky late, right? They've struggled the last 2 weeks. Their offense has been boiled down to just Michael Penix Jr. throwing contested balls to probably the best wide receiver core in the country outside of Columbus, Ohio. And it's worked, right? They've escaped late. I mean, even against Stanford, if the dude just catches that 4th down trick play that hit him in the hands, then maybe Stanford takes him down, right? Like Washington hasn't fell victim to the, you've looked bad lately, so we're going to drop you in the polls. They, for some reason, I think Pac-12 After Dark is helping them out with that because apparently nobody's watching the games on the West Coast. But Washington has been struggling. But man, USC, man. The thing is, if USC commits to running the ball, I think they win the game. The problem is, despite Lincoln Riley wanting to run the ball so much successfully at Oklahoma with his power spread, he hasn't been running the ball nearly as much at USC, which really Marshawn Lloyd, he's been running the ball well. So if they can commit to running the ball instead of just going, hey, look, Caleb, we're just going to draw some plays in the dirt, go beat them. I think they have a chance to win this. I mean, Zachariah Branch is going to have to return one, at least going to be big in the return game, maybe not return one all the way, but put him up maybe into the red zone or in good field position. I could see it happening, but it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I'm going on a limb. I'm trusting CW to outscore Washington. I think he's the better quarterback of the two. I don't think that's a question, but obviously one quarterback has help, the other one doesn't. And that's the difference. Defense and a wide receiver, it looks like. Missouri at Georgia. Is this where Missouri starts to come back to life, back to reality?
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to sing that song, by the way. Yeah, I agree. Their remaining schedule is they have Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and then Arkansas, which I don't think is worth the Charmin I will wipe my butt with. But yeah, How bad is this game this week?
I think Georgia wins by 2+ scores. I mean, I don't think it gets 49-10 or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's
It's
an
in Athens,
absolute
by the way.
thrashing.
I don't think it's a blowout, but I think Georgia wins comfortably.
Yeah, I'll bet you
Personally.
Georgia wins and covers.
I agree. I totally agree. And then finally, let's get to the final game we'll talk about here. And that is Notre Dame. Well, we got two, actually, because we got to do Texas A&M, Mississippi. Notre Dame at Clemson.
I mean,
This feels like
has to win one of these eventually, right?
Who's going to score first?
It's hard to explain, but it feels like this is the game. Like, it just feels like this is the game where Clemson gets back on track. I don't know why I feel that way, because I have no objective, grounded reason to believe that Clemson will beat Notre Dame.
Clemson is 4-4.
But that's what I'm saying is like, is this the week, right? Clemson has the talent. They've got coaching. They've got maybe the
Dabo running the offense.
Maybe that call from Tyler asking why Dabo's paid so much money woke him up and said, you know what, I'm going to go out and earn that money now. I don't know. Who scores first? I don't know, but this could be a very low scoring game. And just because we've got a decade of like history with Clemson, Dabo, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Clemson gets this win.
I kind of agree with you all.
I'm with it. I'm going Clemson.
Yeah.
Again, no idea why. No idea why. Everything points to Notre Dame, but I'm going Clemson. Just got a feeling. Just got a good feeling.
To me, this is the team that's going to score the most, right? Which may be 10, 17 at most. I make it's a joke, but I said Dabo runs the offense, but it's his offense. Is this the week that Garrett Riley actually gets to take over? That he finally says, we're 4-4, Garrett, run your offense. Not the Clemson offense, run your offense. And they finally start to look like a coherent offensive unit. I think that's the only chance, honestly, because outside of it, the weird part is that Sam Harmon is such a good quarterback, but you go to Notre Dame and you just look like you're a high schooler, like, because their offense is so archaic, I guess. And I think that's on both sides, just archaic offenses, which is odd to say with a Riley run offense, and Riley run in quotations, air quotes. So, but I'm still going to take Clemson. It's in Death Valley, the other Death Valley, and for some odd reason, this game always ends up being close, but I think Clemson somehow pulls away here. And then finally, Texas A&M at Mississippi. I think Mississippi brings the loss number 4 for Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher as they continue to show that you can have the best players in the country, but when you're devoid of any sort of culture and coaching, you get your ass kicked.
You know what would be hilarious is if Kiffin and Ole Miss just blow the doors off A&M and Lane is the one that gets Jimbo fired.
Well, the funny part is I think Lane would be a candidate for A&M.
Well, yes, I agree.
And would that not be the most epic marriage of all time? College Station and that Colt.
He'd be a good coach for that job.
He would be a great coach for that job because he would tell the donors to stick it where the sun don't shine.
Well, it's funny because you look at it, it's like, we talk about, coaches that are coaching for their job.
Yeah.
Like if he knows what A&M pays. If he can coach Jimbo out of a job, not only is he saving his own, but like you said, he could double his money or win in a football game. So,
True.
I mean, I think either way, I think A&M, you know, the buyout drops annually, but it's never going to be a bargain. So I think A&M is planning on not letting him coach out his contract regardless. So I don't think this game really has much of an impact on the long-term coaching future of Jimbo Fisher. But
even if they get blown out,
I think they want to move on regardless. I think they've had enough embarrassment. I think at this point it's just piling on. But piling on that I'm very much going to enjoy. So Ole Miss by 2 touchdowns.
are we going to enjoy it? Because here's the thing. If you're an Oklahoma fan, the portal, will it benefit LSU and Texas more than it will benefit Oklahoma as far as their players getting in the portal?
I don't care. Give Oklahoma, like the same thing happened when it was like,
what, 2 or 3 of their players, and then you're good to go?
Well, my thing is
defensive line, particularly.
So I'll use this scenario. So, and I know if Missouri fans have made it this far that they're not going to like it, but I don't care. Let's just say, hypothetically, since we know that Williams-Nwaneri was told by both Jeremiah McClellan and Ryan Wingo that they'd all play in Missouri together, and now McClellan's committed to Ohio State and Wingo's committed to Texas, and Nwaneri's standing there looking like the Fresh Prince, you know, only one in the room gif. Like if Wingo going to Texas means that Nwaneri can end up in Oklahoma, like, cool, we each get a 5-star. I trust this staff with 5 stars far more than I trust Texas's staff with 5 stars. So it's like, with that, like, sure. How many 5-stars does LSU have on their defense right now?
A lot.
More than is represented by their actual defensive play on the field. So with that, if we're gonna hand out, you know, ingredients like this is chopped, and you just hand basket of ingredients to 3, cool. Give the 2 crappy cooks better ingredients. I don't care. We got a really good cook in Norman, Oklahoma right now. Give him a little bit less ingredients, and I'm going to want to eat his meal more than I want the other guys.
Grill boy with a cooking analogy. Who would have thunk it? And there you go. Salute it away. But that's true, because I think Oklahoma is going to end up with 2 or 3 players out of the portal. And now everybody's going to go to the board and go, who are those 2 or 3 players that Drum was talking about from Texas A&M? Potentially, look, we all know there's going to be some sort of exodus from A&M, whether small or large. Like, they're going to lose some players. That is something that we've heard continuously this fall, and it seems to be, as they struggle more and more, you're going to see that happen. I think Oklahoma lands a couple. I do. Now, who those couple are, I have no idea, because we don't know. That nobody's entered the portal. We don't know who's going to enter and do what. That said, I trust, exactly like you said, if Oklahoma can get a couple of guys with high potential and high ceilings, you get Jerry Schmidt developing their physical bodies and their strength and conditioning, and the nutritionists at Oklahoma. You get the mental makeup of Brent Venables and his understanding and the schematics of whatever that is on offense or defense. You trust what Oklahoma is going to be able to do with those transfers, because they've proven it already. Look, they've gotten really one good full chunk of being able to get transfers and recruiting, right? And within that 12-month period, they've transformed the program. You trust that. And you trust it completely if you're an Oklahoma fan right now. Now, if they lose this weekend, trust starts lagging a little bit. So they got to win this weekend. And on that note, we've all picked Oklahoma to win. It is the final Bedlam week. Favorite Bedlam moment before we go?
Favorite Bedlam moment for me would be Blake Bell finding Jalen Saunders in the back right corner of the end zone to really seal the deal in that game. I know the final score doesn't suggest that was the game-winning play because of that late scoop and score, but that play, and hearing Hunziker call it just as depressed as he was about it, and throws the end zone. Jalen Saunders, he caught the ball, touchdown Sooners. Like that's probably my favorite, at least recently.
Brennan Clay, double OT 2012.
2012, yeah. That's a good one. Those are two really good ones. What if I just said the punt and the repunt by Bob Stiff getting to Tyreek Hill? I kid, Sooners fans. I kid. Where'd you go, Travis? Keep sleeping. All right. No, I'm gonna go with Baker Mayfield coming out on 2015, and I've got a lot, but this probably just resonates with people listening now because they can remember it. 2015 with the goatees and saying that they were the new sheriffs in town in what was the Big 12 title game at that point. They were both playing for the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma goes and wins and then heads to the college football playoffs for the first time. And I think that was such a huge moment. You could go to 2017 in Stillwater, and that back and forth was unbelievable with Hollywood Brown, but I'm going to go with the goatee and the new sheriffs in town because I just think that was such a pivotal moment in the program to change it and put it in the trajectory of where it is now. Because if that doesn't take place, if that swagger and Baker doesn't take place, I don't know that Oklahoma's been as dominant as they were from 2015 to now in the Big 12. I just don't. So I'm going to go with that. And on that note, we're going to finish this pregame podcast. I want to thank you all for watching. If you're not on OU Insider, go sign up. Grill Boy's got his stuff coming tomorrow. His pregame write-up. I've got a mailbag question I'm about to drop, and this is on Thursday morning, so everybody knows. About to drop a 8-part mailbag, a bunch of questions and answers in there. Like, it's long, and it's very informative, very insider-esque. You guys will like it. We got the chat going on. We got Parker's 4-piece that just dropped this morning as well. So much going on OU Insider as far as recruiting nuggets, team notes from Jesse, Brian, myself, Parker, Travis, all of it. Like, we've got you covered on OU Insider, $9.99 a month. Or if you want to get the whole year and be able to get all through the SEC season, sign up today. $99 will get you all the way from this point in November all the way to 2024 November. And it's worth it. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of OU fans on there. We can't thank you enough. That's going to do it for this version. I want to thank Olipop for obviously sponsoring us. Drink Olipop. It's good for you. It's healthy, and it tastes great. And it's a soda. So if you like soda taste, that's the way to go. If you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel, subscribe. We're 13,000 plus, and we can't thank you guys enough. And give us 5 stars, whatever platform you listen to us on the podcast. All right. For Travis Davidson, for Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider pregame podcast. You guys have a blessed day. We will see you on the postgame.